Novedades, un mondo da scoprire, nuvole di aromi, un viaggio da seguire, tra sapori esotici e note di tabacco, un'esperienza sensoriale, un nuovo distacco. Vaping Post, la guida nel vapore, informazioni e consigli, un vero sapere.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that's got all the makings of a political drama. You've got a president's promise, a massive $10 million donation, and a huge government agency caught right in the crossfire. And what's at stake? Well, it's nothing less than the future of the entire vaping industry.
Okay, so this all really kicks off with a central question, and it comes from an investigative piece over at Vaping 360. A president makes this big public vow to save vaping. But what if the actions of his own government are actually, well, doing the exact opposite? Let's unpack that.
So first up, the promise. Our story really starts where so many of these political battles do, out on the campaign trail. We're talking about a promise made directly not just to voters, but to an entire industry. Now, according to the reporting from Vaping 360, this promise didn't just come out of nowhere. It wasn't made in a vacuum. It all seems to have crystallized in September of 2024. See, right after a meeting with the Vapor Technology Association, or VTA, Donald Trump went straight to his social media platform to make a really public statement. And here's the quote itself, right from his Truth Social account. Now, what's interesting here is that he's not just making a new promise for the future, he's actually looking back, referencing his claim that he already saved the industry from flavor bans back in 2019, and he's vowing he's going to do it all over again. Okay, next up is the money factor. Because, a campaign promise is one thing, but political reality, that can be a whole different beast. And the Vaping 360 article argues that if you really want to get what's going on here, you've got to follow the money. And where does it lead? Straight to big tobacco. The article really zeroes in on this number, a whopping $10 million. Now, that's the size of the donation that R.J. Reynolds, the company that makes Camel cigarettes and the Voos vape, gave to a major super PAC allied with Trump. The reporting suggests this made them the single largest corporate donor. That's a lot of money. So you gotta ask, what does that kind of money mean in the real world? Well, just take a look at the state of the market right now. According to the source, out of the just nine e-liquid vape devices that have actually gotten FDA authorization, a full 8 of them are made by big tobacco companies. It means the independent industry, they're almost completely locked out of the legal market.
And here's the regulatory brick wall that the independent industry keeps running into. The FDA has never, not once, authorized the kinds of products that are the lifeblood of small vape shops. We're talking about open system, refillable vapes, or any bottled e-liquid in a flavor that isn't tobacco or menthol. So what does that do? Well, the article argues it basically creates a protected market just for the products that big tobacco sells.
All right, this brings us to the administration itself. And this is where the Vaping 360 piece points out a really fascinating conflict. You've got the president's promise over here, big tobacco's money over there, and then you have his own top health officials who seem to be sending completely mixed signals. It's a real tug of war, and you can see that split pretty clearly right here. On one hand, you've got HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about fast-tracking approval for some vapes. But then on the other hand, you have his own FDA commissioner, Martin Makary, calling for more enforcement and raids on vape shops. So which is it? Who's actually driving the policy here? So Secretary Kennedy's view, as the article lays it out, is pretty much in line with tobacco harm reduction. He's on the record saying things like nicotine itself does not cause cancer, and that vaping is infinitely preferential to smoking. He's basically framing it as part of the solution to get people away from deadly cigarettes, not just another problem. But then, in stark contrast, you've got FDA Commissioner Makary. His public comments? They're focused almost entirely on youth addiction. He says things like, "I personally have observed kids from good families who have become addicted." Now, the source article calls this kind of language a dog whistle aimed at suburban parents, arguing that it's designed to shift the whole debate away from helping adult smokers and onto a crisis of teenage use. So, with all these conflicting words coming from the top, you have to wonder whose vision is actually winning out on the ground, where the rubber meets the road. Well, the Vaping 360 article digs into the FDA's actual actions to get an answer. And the answer, according to the source, it's a massive crackdown. The FDA is busy intercepting shipments of unauthorized disposables, blocking refillable products, and even seizing things like replacement pods and coils, basically all the stuff independent vape shops need to stay in business. And at the same time, they're slapping small U.S. manufacturers with these marketing denial orders. So let's be really clear about what a marketing denial order, or MDO, actually is. It's not a warning. It's the FDA ordering a product to be pulled from the market, period. For a small business, it's basically a death sentence. And the source points out that since the inauguration, 33 of these have been handed out. And every single one went to a small, independent American company.
And here's where the article points to what it calls a huge disconnect. You've got FDA Commissioner Makari publicly going after vape shops, but the author claims the data actually shows that most kids who get vapes aren't getting them from vape shops. They're getting them from other places like convenience stores. So the argument is that the enforcement actions aren't even targeting the main source of the youth access problem.
All right, so let's put all the pieces together. You've got the big money from big tobacco, the conflicting messages from inside the administration, and this aggressive FDA crackdown on the independent industry. It all brings us right back to our central question. Can the president actually deliver on that campaign promise?
So what would it actually take to save vaping?
According to the Vaping 360 piece, it's not a simple fix. It would be a monumental task. We're talking about a massive top-to-bottom shakeup of the FDA's Center for Tobacco Products. It would mean totally reorienting the authorization process to be about regulating products, not just banning them. And maybe toughest of all, it would mean standing up to big tobacco, even with all those campaign contributions. The source's conclusion is pretty stark. It basically says that despite a new president and new leadership, the actual regulatory engine, the FDA Center for Tobacco Products, is just running on the same old tracks. It's operating pretty much exactly as it did under the previous administration, using the same playbook to shut down independent products while the big players get a pass.
And that brings us to the final, powerful question posed by the Vaping 360 article itself. For all the small manufacturers, the vape shop owners, and their customers, that promise to save vaping means everything. It's their livelihood. The author leaves us all to wonder, does that promise still mean anything to the man who made it?
Stacco. Vaping Post, la guida nel vapore, informazioni e consigli, un vero sapere tra dispositivi e liquidi, un'arte da svelare. Vape Explorers,